What if the most sophisticated wealth-building manual ever written was sitting in your Bible, and almost nobody had told you to read it as a financial document? King Solomon, at the height of his reign, was worth an estimated $2 trillion in today's money. To put that in perspective, Elon Musk, the wealthiest individual on Earth in 2024, is worth approximately $300 billion. Jeff Bezos, around $200 billion. The entire Forbes billionaires list of the world's 2,640 billionaires had a combined net worth of about $12 trillion in 2023. Solomon, one man in roughly 960 BC, $2 trillion. He received 25 tons of gold every year, just in gold. His trading fleet sailed to places called Ophir and Tarshish and returned with gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. He controlled the trade routes between Africa, Arabia, Asia, and the Mediterranean, the ancient Silk Road. He built the Temple in Jerusalem, a structure that consumed 3,750 tons of gold in its construction alone. His throne was overlaid in ivory and pure gold. His drinking cups were not silver. Silver was considered too common in Jerusalem during Solomon's reign, and he wrote it all down. The Book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the Song of Solomon, 1,005 songs, 3,000 proverbs. He wrote about trees, about animals, about the management of people, about the principles of long-term prosperity. This video is a financial masterclass from the mind of the wealthiest person in human history. We are going deep. We are going to cover the leadership principles that built his empire, the specific wealth strategies he documented himself, and the boardroom intelligence embedded in his writings. Get a notepad. This one is going to change things. Let us establish who Solomon was and the world he operated in, because context makes the principles land harder. Solomon was born to King David and Bathsheba around 990 BC in Jerusalem, the capital of the United Kingdom of Israel. His name in Hebrew, Shlomo, comes from the root word for peace, shalom. And his reign, roughly 970 to 931 BC, was indeed the most peaceful and prosperous in Israel's history. His kingdom at its peak stretched from the Euphrates River in modern Iraq and Syria, down through modern Jordan, Israel, and Lebanon to the border of Egypt. This was not a small tribal territory. This was a regional empire that sat at the intersection of 3 continents, at the most commercially strategic location in the ancient world. To the north were the Phoenicians of modern Lebanon, the greatest maritime traders of the ancient world. Solomon partnered with Hiram, king of Tyre, to build his fleet and leverage Phoenician seamanship. To the south and east was the Arabian Peninsula, the source of incense, spices, and luxury goods that the entire ancient world wanted. To the west was Egypt, the granary of the Mediterranean. To the east was Mesopotamia, Babylon and Assyria, centers of banking, astronomy, and commerce. Solomon sat at the crossroads of all of it, and he understood, more than perhaps any ruler before him, that the way to build wealth was not to conquer these nations but to trade with them, to create a system by which value flowed through his territory and he took a portion of all of it. He collected tribute from subject kingdoms. He taxed the trading caravans that passed through his territory. He built trade partnerships with Hiram of Tyre that gave him access to the Mediterranean. He sent his own fleet to Ophir, likely modern Somalia or southern Arabia, and returned with extraordinary quantities of gold. The Queen of Sheba, almost certainly the ruler of the Sabaean kingdom in modern Yemen and Ethiopia, a trading empire in its own right, came to test him. She brought a caravan of camels loaded with spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones. She came to assess whether the reports about his wisdom were true. She left saying, "The half was not told me." This was not personal admiration. This was a trade mission. She was assessing whether a diplomatic and commercial relationship with Solomon was worth pursuing. She concluded it was. Solomon's annual income, documented in 1 Kings chapter 10, was 666 talents of gold per year, before tribute from merchants, taxes from traders, and gifts from Arabian kings and governors. Historians calculate this at approximately $1.5 billion annually in today's purchasing power. He built the Temple of Jerusalem 7 years. He built his own palace complex 13 years. He built the city wall of Jerusalem, the Millo, the city of Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer, all major strategic and commercial cities. And then, in the final years of his life, he drifted. He married foreign wives who brought their gods with him. He compromised the foundation of his values, and his kingdom began to fracture. When he died, it split in two under his son Rehoboam. The wealthiest reign in history ended in fragmentation, because the man who knew more about wisdom than anyone alive forgot to apply it to his own choices. That tension is the most important lesson in his entire story. But we will get to that. The beginning of Solomon's wealth and wisdom is found in a single extraordinary moment. The night God appeared to him at Gibeon and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." This was early in his reign. He was young. He had just become king of the most strategically positioned nation in the ancient world, with a treasury built by his father David, a military established through decades of hard-won battles, and a people who expected great things from their new king. And he could ask for anything. He could have asked for wealth. He could have asked for military dominance. He could have asked for long life. He could have asked for the destruction of his enemies. He asked for a discerning heart to govern his people and to distinguish between right and wrong. God's response is one of the most significant moments in the theology of prosperity in the entire Bible. God said, "Since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth or the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, and I will also give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings." The sequencing matters profoundly. Wisdom first, then everything else as a consequence. Solomon immediately demonstrated this wisdom in one of the most famous judicial decisions in history. Two women came to him with one living baby and one dead one. Both claimed the living child was theirs. There were no witnesses, no evidence, no forensic capability. Solomon asked for a sword. He said, "Divide the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other." One woman said, "Neither of us shall have him. Divide him." The other said, "Please, give her the living baby. Do not kill him." Solomon immediately knew who the real mother was, the one willing to give the child up to save it, the one whose love was greater than her claim. All Israel heard of the judgment, and they stood in awe of the king, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. That reputation spread rapidly, and people, including rulers, came from across the ancient world just to listen to him. And when they came, they brought gifts. The Queen of Sheba brought 4.5 tons of gold on a single visit, plus spices and precious stones in such quantity that 1 Kings chapter 10 says that never again were so many spices brought in as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. His wisdom was a commercial asset. His reputation attracted capital. He then built systematically. The temple, the most sacred structure in Israelite history, was built using 15,000 workers at any one time, over 7 years, with cedar from Lebanon, gold overlaid on every surface, and craftsmanship that would make it the most famous building in the ancient world for centuries. His own palace was larger, 13 years of construction, the Hall of Justice, the Hall of the Forest of Lebanon, his own residence, his wife's residence, all connected, all magnificent. He organized his kingdom into 12 administrative districts, each responsible for supplying the palace for 1 month of the year. This was not just a supply system, it was a national economy management strategy. He distributed the burden and the participation across the entire population, preventing any single region from either carrying too much weight or becoming too powerful. His trading partnerships were sophisticated. He worked with Hiram of Tyre through a profit-sharing arrangement. Hiram provided cedar, cypress, and skilled craftsmen. Solomon provided wheat and olive oil. They then co-owned a fleet of ships, Hiram's navigators and Solomon's financing, that sailed to Ophir and brought back 450 talents of gold on the first voyage alone. He understood the principle of complementary advantage. You bring what you have, I bring what I have, and together we access what neither of us could reach alone. He also documented his principles. 3,000 Proverbs. Proverbs 8 verse 18. With me are riches and honor, enduring wealth and prosperity. Proverbs 13 verse 11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Proverbs 21 verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 24 verses 3 to 4. By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. He was teaching a system, not a secret, not a shortcut, a principle-based system for the creation and preservation of wealth. And then he drifted. He married 700 wives and had 300 concubines, primarily political alliances but also personal compromises. His foreign wives brought their religions with him. He built shrines to foreign gods. He divided his heart. And in Ecclesiastes, the book he wrote likely in his final years, we see the weight of all that knowledge combined with the regret of compromised integrity. Vanity of vanities, he wrote, all is vanity. He had experienced everything that wealth and achievement could offer. And his conclusion was not that none of it mattered, but that all of it, without the foundational wisdom and integrity that had built it, left a man hollow. The kingdom split under his son, divided into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, a fracture that lasted for centuries. He built an empire, and he forgot to build the succession. Leadership value. What leadership value applies to us today? What does Solomon teach us about leadership? Leadership Principle 1. Ask for the capacity to serve before you ask for the resources to spend. Solomon's foundational leadership insight, wisdom over wealth, is not just a spiritual principle. It is an organizational one. The leaders who ask for better skills, better judgment, and better systems before they ask for bigger budgets, bigger titles, and bigger teams are consistently the ones who build organizations that outlast them. In the modern context, this looks like investing in leadership development before headcount. It looks like a CEO who reads voraciously and actively seeks mentorship instead of assuming that the title has already validated them. It looks like a founder who hires people smarter than themselves in every department because they understand that their own judgment has limits. The greatest leaders share one common trait. They are obsessed with the quality of their own thinking. They invest in that quality as aggressively as they invest in any other asset. Leadership Principle 2. Build systems, not just solutions. Solomon did not just rule, he organized. 12 districts, each responsible for specific periods. Centralized administration. Distributed execution. He built the governmental architecture that allowed the kingdom to function without requiring his personal attention in every corner. This is the transition from manager to leader. Managers solve problems. Leaders build systems that prevent problems. Solomon was not running around putting out fires in the food supply. He had a system that managed the food supply. He was not personally supervising every construction project. He had a project management structure under his authority. The leadership question for you is, where in your organization, your team, or your business are you still solving the same problem repeatedly? That repetition is telling you something needs a system, not another solution. Leadership Principle 3. Reputation is your most scalable asset. The Queen of Sheba did not hear about Solomon from a cold call or a message. She heard about him from trade networks, from travelers, from the cultural conversation of the ancient Near East. His reputation preceded him so powerfully that a head of state organized a diplomatic trade mission just to assess the intelligence. And when she arrived, his reputation was confirmed, in fact, exceeded. The half was not told me. That surplus of reality over expectation is what generates referrals, partnerships, and opportunities that you could never generate through active sales. Leaders who build organizations primarily through the quality of their output and the reliability of their word will always have more opportunity than they can handle. The challenge becomes discernment, knowing which opportunities align with the mission and which ones are distractions. Leadership Principle 4. The cost of divided values is a divided legacy. Solomon's fatal leadership error was not ignorance. He wrote about the very principles he violated. He warned others about the exact compromises he made. He knew better and compromised anyway. This is the most sobering leadership lesson in his story. Knowledge without discipline is insufficient. You can know all the right principles and still choose the wrong path under pressure, fatigue, or temptation. The practical leadership application. Your personal disciplines, your boundaries, your non-negotiables, your daily habits are not optional extras. They are the structural integrity of everything else you build. When those foundations compromise, everything built on top of them eventually follows. Wealth building value. What wealth building value does this story show us? Solomon is arguably the greatest wealth teacher in biblical history. Let us extract his core wealth building framework. Wealth Principle 1. Wisdom is the asset that acquires all other assets. This is Solomon's thesis. It is the foundation of every proverb he wrote. And it is empirically supported by the behavior of the wealthiest people in modern history. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner at Berkshire Hathaway, spent his entire life building what he called a lattice of mental models, a framework of principles from multiple disciplines that allowed him to see investment opportunities and risks that others missed. He called this the most valuable asset in investing, the quality of your thinking. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, on the explicit principle that he needed to be a learning machine. He documented his principles obsessively, tested them constantly, and built an organization where the quality of decision-making was the competitive advantage. This is Solomon's principle applied to the modern economy. Before you invest in stocks, invest in financial education. Before you build a business, invest in understanding how businesses actually work. Before you acquire real estate, invest in understanding the economics of real estate in your specific market. Wisdom before wealth. Every time. Wealth Principle 2. Diversify across 7, because you do not know where disaster will strike. Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. This is modern portfolio theory, written by Solomon 3,000 years before Harry Markowitz published it in 1952 and won the Nobel Prize for Economics. Solomon's empire was not built on a single revenue stream. He had agricultural tribute, trade route taxation, commercial partnerships, a government fleet, gold from Ophir, gifts from visiting dignitaries, manufacturing through temple and palace construction projects. His income diversification was extraordinary. The wealth application for today: one income stream is not a financial strategy. It is a single point of failure. A job is a single client. A business with one major customer is a business with an existential vulnerability. The number 7 in Solomon's verse is not literal. It is the principle of deliberate diversification before adversity reveals the necessity of it. Wealth Principle 3. Diligence compounds. Haste destroys. Proverbs 13 verse 11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Proverbs 21 verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. In our era of viral wealth stories, the mathematics of compounding makes slow, consistent, diligent accumulation over time more powerful than any shortcut. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. Solomon documented the same principle 3,000 years earlier. Gather little by little, and it grows. The person who saves and invests £500 per month for 30 years at an average annual return of 8% will have approximately £680,000, without ever increasing the amount. The person who tries to get rich quickly through leverage, speculation, and haste will, statistically, lose everything multiple times before they learn the lesson Solomon wrote down in advance. Wealth Principle 4. Your reputation generates passive income. The Queen of Sheba brought 4.5 tons of gold to Jerusalem, just to access Solomon's wisdom. People brought gifts to Solomon simply to be in his presence. In modern terms, this is the premium brand effect. Apple charges 3 times the price of comparable hardware because of what it represents. McKinsey charges consulting fees that other firms cannot approach because of what their name means to a board of directors. A premium reputation generates income that competence alone cannot command. Build your reputation as aggressively as you build your skills. They are equally valuable assets, and the reputation, once established, compounds with less active effort required to maintain it. Boardroom value. What boardroom value can we extract from this story? Now into the boardroom. What executive and organizational lessons does Solomon give us? Boardroom Lesson 1. Complementary partnership is more powerful than competitive positioning. Solomon's deal with Hiram of Tyre is one of the most elegant partnership structures in ancient history. Hiram had maritime expertise and cedar forests. Solomon had food surpluses and financing capacity. Neither could do alone what they could do together. So they built a partnership that gave each party access to what they could not reach individually, and they split the resulting wealth. The boardroom application. Stop looking for what you can do alone. The most value-creating business relationships are the ones where each party brings something genuinely irreplaceable. Before you build your next initiative entirely in-house, ask, who already has what I am about to spend 2 years building? What do I have that they cannot easily replicate? Could a partnership create more value, faster, for both of us? Boardroom Lesson 2. Create information arbitrage and monetize it. Solomon's advisors came from across the ancient world with questions they could not resolve at home. He had better information, better analytical frameworks, and better judgment than any other center of power in his era. People paid to access that superior information. In modern boardrooms, information asymmetry is still one of the most powerful competitive advantages. The company that knows its customer more deeply than its competitors has a durable advantage. The executive who has built genuine domain expertise, not just title experience, commands rooms differently. The question for your boardroom: where do you have information that others in your market do not? And are you monetizing that asymmetry deliberately through premium pricing, through exclusive relationships, through proprietary process? Boardroom Lesson 3. Succession planning is not optional. It is existential. Solomon's failure to build a successor who could hold the kingdom together was the most consequential oversight of his reign. Rehoboam, his son, came to the throne with no emotional intelligence, no political wisdom, and no understanding of how to manage people. When the people asked for relief from heavy taxation, Rehoboam listened to young advisors instead of experienced ones and responded with threats. The kingdom split in a week. 39 years of extraordinary building, and it fractured because the leader did not build the next leader. Every significant organization that fails to prioritize leadership development and succession planning eventually faces the same outcome. Who are you developing? Who is learning to lead from being around you? Who could step into your role tomorrow? And would they be ready? Boardroom Lesson 4. Never let your personal life compromise the organization's foundation. Solomon's 700 wives were not primarily personal choices. They were political alliances common in the ancient world. But the cumulative compromise of those alliances, the religious syncretism, the moral drift, the divided heart, eroded the very values that had made the kingdom exceptional. In corporate terms, this is the phenomenon of mission drift. Companies that began with clarity of purpose become distracted by adjacencies, political relationships, and revenue opportunities that are technically available but culturally corrosive. The greatest boards ask a single question regularly: are we still doing the thing that made us excellent? If the answer is no, the leadership conversation needs to happen before the fragmentation does. Modern application. 3 final questions before you close this video. Question 1. What is the wisdom you are not yet pursuing? Solomon asked for wisdom because he recognized that governing well required more than raw intelligence or inherited authority. It required cultivated judgment. What is the domain of knowledge about money, about leadership, about your specific industry, about people that you know you need to develop and that you have been deferring? The window for that investment is now. Not because opportunity is closing, but because every year you wait is a year of compounding you are not getting. Question 2. What is your equivalent of offer? Every great wealth builder has an offer, a high-return opportunity that requires a vehicle they cannot build alone and a journey that feels too risky to most people around them. Solomon found it through partnership with Hiram. What partnership could give you access to the returns you cannot reach from where you currently stand? Question 3. What is your foundation, and is it currently compromised? Solomon's wealth was real. His wisdom was real. But the foundation, the singular commitment to divine wisdom that had generated everything else, was compromised before the end of his story. What is your foundation? Not your skills, not your network, not your income, the deep thing that everything else is built on. The integrity of that foundation is not a spiritual luxury. It is the most practical investment you will make all year. The wisest man in history left us his principles. The question is whether we will use them more faithfully than he did in his final chapter. If Solomon's story expanded how you think about wealth and leadership, share this video. Tag someone who is building something right now and needs this framework. Subscribe to the Bible Wealth channel. Every week, one biblical story, fully unpacked, the leadership principles, the wealth principles, and the boardroom lessons that are as relevant today as they were 3,000 years ago. Drop a comment. Which of Solomon's 4 wealth principles do you most need to apply right now? I genuinely want to know, because that comment tells me what to make next. See you next week.